Hello, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to today's pretty exciting video. We haven't sat and chat in a little bit about books, and I'm excited for this one because we're going to be talking about the books on my spring TBR. Now I know we are already pretty much in the thick of spring, but these are the books that are still on my radar, aside from the ones I've already gotten through. These are the ones that are left over, the ones I still want to get to. It definitely will roll around into summer because I feel like spring ends for me in June, which is coming up pretty soon, which is crazy. But these are the books that are on my radar for the rest of spring, and maybe they'll sprinkle into June as well. I've said it many times, I love a TBR video, whether it's picking your TBR or talking about books. This is where I find a lot of books that I want to add to my TBR, so hopefully you guys can add some of these to your TBR if you're interested in them. I split them up by genre, so we have some fantasy and dystopian books, and then more historical fiction slash just fiction genres, and then I also have some romances, and then at the end there's some new releases that I would love to talk about because there's a couple coming out this spring that I am so excited about. But let's get into it by the ones I have with me right now. Actually, I only have 6. I think this is 6. 5? Possibly, maybe it is 5 on my physical TBR for my spring TBR. So all the other ones I actually don't have, but maybe throughout the spring I will be reading them and buying them. So let's start actually with our fantasy books. The first one is Our Infinite Fates by Laura Steven. This one's been on my radar since I saw one person talk about it and just explain the summary, and I was like, that actually seems so up my alley. I haven't really been in a fantasy mood so far this year yet. Like, I just have not been gravitating towards them. They feel very repetitive to me, but I really want to read this one because the general consensus I've got, I haven't really watched many reviews of it, but from the summaries I've heard, it's about these two main characters that have loved each other in every single lifetime, but have also killed each other in every single lifetime. I don't really know how that works out, but it sounds so good, and it sounds like a really interesting and beautiful concept that I think I would really love, and I don't know why I haven't gotten to it yet. I think it's one of those where in my head I'm gonna rate it so highly, or I think I'm gonna rate it so highly, that I've been putting it off for like the perfect moment, and that moment hasn't come just yet. But this is on like my top of list to read once I'm in a fantasy mood. Like, this is the one I'm going to be reaching for. And then one I actually have on my physical TBR that I just recently added, that is Babel by R.F. Kuang. It's been on my mental TBR and one I wanted to read more recently on my Kindle. It's on Kindle Unlimited. I have it downloaded there, but I recently bought it on my Boston trip, and I really want to get to it soon because I have R.F. Kuang's newest book on deck, but I want to read at least 2 of her books before I get into it. So this is gonna be the second one. This one I've heard many amazing reviews about. I don't know exactly what it's about. I know it takes place at a college. I think it's a fantasy situation setting. I think our main character is like a translator of some sort. The time period is actually 1828. He's learning all of these languages in preparation for the day he'll enroll in Oxford University's prestigious Royal Institute of Translation, also known as Babel. I've heard that this one talks about a lot of different topics and themes that go on in like the real life world, but like obviously in this like fantasy type of situation. So I'm really excited about this one. This is also high on my radar. Well, obviously these all are high on my radar, but this one's on like high top of my radar for the springtime. The next book we have is actually a sci-fi book, which is not one of my favorite genres. I don't really dabble into this one very often, but this one has been on a mental TBR for a really long time, so I think it's time we get to it, and that is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. This one I believe is about a man who has like his life, and then he wakes up one day in a totally different life, and he's like, he doesn't have his wife or his kid or anything like that, and I think it has more of like a deeper meaning where it's like, are you happy with your life if you can see yourself in like a different position? I'm assuming like if you make different choices where you would end up, like, are you happy with your current life? I don't know, I think it's a book that'll get me thinking maybe, and I've heard amazing things about this one as well. So this one is top of my TBR. Again, I don't really read sci-fi too much, so we'll see how this one goes. The last fantasy book that is on my spring TBR is called The Tainted Cup. This one I recently saw. The second one I think is coming out soon, so I was like, okay, let me go back into the first one because I looked up a list of like new releases coming out this spring. So I saw this book, and it actually is described as a fantasy Knives Out, which I think is like such an interesting concept. I love Knives Out, the movie. It's reading a book with that kind of like mystery concept, but in a fantasy world, I think is really fun. There's basically a murder in the fantasy world, and there's like the main detective and then her kind of like colleague sidekick situation going on, and they are using their skills to figure out what happened, and I'm really excited about this one. I think it's different. It's an exciting mix of genres, like a fantasy mystery, so this is the last fantasy on my TBR, and hopefully I can get to this one because it sounds really good. Okay, getting into the genre that I'm actually most excited about this spring and going into summertime, and that is not only just historical fiction, but just regular like general fiction. I've been really like gravitating towards it most recently, or like seeing a lot of summaries of books that seem very interesting to me, and it's actually in that genre, which is not the normal genre I go to. Usually I'm in a romance mood, especially in the spring and going into summer. I'm always wanting to pick up a romance, which I still do, but I have been wanting to pick up some more historical fiction fiction and then these like general fiction books. So here are the ones that are on my radar. First one is called The Woman in the Wallpaper by Laura Jones. This one's actually a book that I saw in Barnes & Noble. I saw the cover of it and I was like, this looks so interesting. Like, you know, judge a book by its cover. I judged this one. I was like, I need to know what this is about. So I read the summary. It's a historical fiction book, and it's always nice finding a book just like on a whim that you haven't seen anyone talk about in a bookstore. So that's kind of how I found this one. I'm gonna read a bit of the summary because I think it explains it a bit better than I would try to summarize it. And it says, it's Paris in 1788. Two sisters are working at a wallpaper company and they soon notice a peculiar pattern in the same woman featured over and over again, the late wife of the owner who died in mysterious circumstances and whose tragically short life is memorialized in the paper. One of the sisters attracts the interest of the factory owner's son Jeff, but there is something uncannily familiar about their interactions. Is Lara paranoid, or is her life at the factory mirroring the scenes illustrated on the wallpaper that lines her bedchamber? I just think it's a very interesting concept. It's historical fiction, the whole wallpaper thing that's going on. I'm excited about this one. It's piqued my interest and it's been on my radar for a few weeks now. So hopefully when I'm in a historical fiction mood, I will be picking this one up. This next historical fiction is probably the one I'm most excited about, and that is Maya and Natasha by Elise Durham. This one I have on my physical TBR. I saw this in Barnes & Noble. It was another one of those that I saw the cover and I was like, I need to read the summary of that. I read the summary and I immediately said, this is coming home with me. This takes place in 1941 in Leningrad. So this takes place in Russia, and there's two sisters and they're both ballerinas. I'm pretty sure they're following in their mother's footsteps, who was a very big ballerina, and I think they also end up being raised by their mother's friend or something like that. But the main plot of the story is they're taking place, like the backdrop is the war that's going on, and because of that they're competing to be in this ballet company that's touring America next year, but because of the war only one of the sisters can get in, so now there's like this competition sense in it. So we have the ballet scenes that I think is going to be so wonderful, especially like a Russian ballet, and I'm so excited because I used to dance and do all these things, so I'm really excited to read about two ballerinas. Also the competition sense, the historical fiction backdrop, I think all of that put together seems like it'll be a very interesting read, and I'm really excited about this one. So this is high up also on my TBR for the spring. The next book that I have on my radar is Tom Lake by Ann Patchett. I have two reasons that I really want to read this, and none of them have to do with the summary of the book. So the first one, the cover. It's screaming spring. I think if there's any season I'm going to read this in, it's spring. I'm definitely a seasonal reader. You know, when I'm in the summer, I want to read romances. In the fall, I want to read dark academia. I just really move with the seasons in my books that I want to read. This one, the cover, and then two, the voice narrator for the audiobook is actually Meryl Streep, and I am a big time lover of Mamma Mia. When I was younger and saw it for the first time, I fell in love with the movie, and then I also kind of fell in love with Meryl Streep. I did projects on her growing up in school, so just the fact that she is the voice narrator makes me really excited to listen to this one. I'm gonna read a little bit of the summary of this one because I think it describes it way better again than I probably can. It says that Lara's three daughters return to the family orchard in northern Michigan. While picking berries, they beg their mother to tell them the story of Peter Duke, a famous actor with whom she shared both a stage romance and a romance years before at a theater company called Tom Lake. So I'm pretty sure Meryl Streep voice narrates the mom retelling the whole story to her daughter. So I'm really excited about this one, and this will be one, like I keep saying, I'm gonna be listening to it. The next one I have on my spring TBR is Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. This one I've actually noticed in the bookstore for years now, actually, and it's always intrigued me, just the cover of it in general, but the summary of it is very, very interesting. It's about this woman, I think her husband dies and she works at an aquarium, and she befriends one of the octopus, how do you say that plural? Well, the octopus that lives there, she befriends him. And that's enough to get me interested, and I've been interested in it for so long. I don't know why I haven't picked it up. For me, it feels like a spring read. I don't know why. I don't know if it is. I don't know what season it takes place in. I think maybe just the cover and the colors for me are giving spring, and that's kind of all I need. But I think the summary of this sounds so interesting. It sounds silly in summary, but I've heard so many people that have read it say that the themes of it with like friendship and all these things are a lot deeper than you would expect, and it's a moving story. And so many times I see people talking about their like top 5 favorite books ever. This is always in the list. I'm definitely interested in it. I definitely want to read it and see for myself if I enjoy it, if I like it, and what the situation is with the friendship with the octopus. The next book I have on my spring TBR, more of like a mental TBR right now, is The Bright Years by Sarah Damoff. I think that's how you say it. This is actually a debut novel, and I've seen a lot of people talking about it more recently because I think it recently just came out, but the cover of this one I really think is so beautiful, so it's been kind of in my mind. Every time I see it, I'm gravitated towards it because the cover is so pretty. The first few sentences of the summary says, 1 family, 4 generations, a secret son, a devastating devastating addiction. Told from 3 intimate points of view, The Bright Years is a tender, true-to-life novel that explores the impact of each generation and family torn apart by tragedy, but over time restored by the power of grace and love. I do love me, you know, messy family dynamic and secrets and stuff like that and the drama of it all, but then the coming together and everything. So I think I would really enjoy this one. Again, I've been seeing it around a lot more recently, I think because it also just came out, so this one is definitely on my radar. The next book I actually saw a few days ago when I was looking at another list of like books that are coming out or books that are out that are on people's spring TBRs to try to get inspiration for mine, and this one is called The Book Club for Troublesome Women by Marie Bostwick. This one's another historical fiction one, but more about female friendships and being in that time period, which is in the 1960s and like the standards around that time. And I think a woman moves into the town and they start like this book club and they read a book that kind of inspires them and kind of like strikes this idea in them that the type of woman they can be, especially with like the standards in that time. Is it really the book that alters the lives of these 4 very different women, or is it the bond of sisterhood that helps them find courage to confront the past, navigate turmoil in a rapidly changing world, and see themselves in a new and... my Goodreads won't let me read more, but I'm assuming in a new and something light or something like that. So this one I feel like will have really amazing themes of just women and female friendships, and reading about it in historical fiction time I think is an interesting concept. So I'm excited about this one. I think this one will be a good read as well. And then on to the last in this just like general type fiction genre is Broken Country. This one is by Claire Leslie Hall. I actually saw this I think like a few weeks ago. I think this is also a newer release, and then I saw a few people talking about it and I was like, this is like kind of getting its rounds, people are noticing it more. And I thought the summary of this was such an interesting concept because it's a mix between, you know, general fiction and mystery, suspense, something like that. So it's kind of a story about this woman. Something tragic happens where someone shoots, I believe, a dog, and the owner of that dog ends up being like her love from like years and years and years ago, and then he comes back into town and it's like this whole thing, if I'm not mistaken. Well, let's see if I'm mistaken. Beth's brother-in-law shoots a dog going after their sheep, and Beth doesn't realize that the gunshot will alter the course of their lives. The dog's owner is Gabriel Wolfe, the man Beth loved as a teenager and also broke her heart years ago. He returns to the village with his young son Theo, a boy who reminds Beth very much of her own son who died in a tragic accident. A sweeping love story with the pace and twists of a thriller, Broken Country is a novel of simmering passion, impossible choices, and explosive consequences that toggles between the past and present to explore the far-reaching legacy of first love. Okay, so my summary was a little bit off. All I know that there was a dog that died and then whoever killed it, the owner is coming back, that whole situation. But I think it's an interesting mix of, you know, the lost love coming back and then also like the mystery of like what's going on. So this one is definitely on my radar for spring, but also going into summer. I'm really excited to read this one. I think it's an interesting, like I said, mix of all the genres. Lastly, before going into a couple new releases, I have a few romances that are on my radar for the spring season. So first one is Culty by Mariana Zapata. I read a few, I think like 2 Mariana Zapata books years ago, like 3 or 4 years ago. I didn't love them, very slow burn. I don't think it was my taste at the time, but I recently read Wait For It by her and I really enjoyed it. You know, I ate up the slow burn. I really liked the pacing of it. I liked the characters and the story and the writing and everything. It was like right book, right time. So I've had this on my TBR for a few years now and I think it's time to get into it. The characters in here actually showed up in Wait For It, and that's when I like remembered I had this on my physical TBR and I was like, no better time to read it than now. This says, when the man you worshipped as a kid becomes your coach, it's supposed to be the greatest thing in the world. Keywords, supposed to. The thing is, I did see like these characters because the timeline in Wait For It is actually after this, so like I kind of saw them after the fact, but like that doesn't really change anything. Like I know how a romance book is going to end, so I'm excited about this. It's actually a sports, as you can see, romance. It's a soccer romance, and he's like one of the best soccer players, something like that. He's a very famous soccer player, but like he becomes the coach. Whatever it is, I'm excited for it. I want to read another Mariana Zapata book soon, and since this is the one that's on my TBR, we're gonna do this one. Then I have Wild and Wrangled by Lila Sage, the last and final book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series. These covers are one of the most beautiful covers ever. I think the art on these are so stunning. Since this is the last one, we've seen these 2 characters in the first 3 books, obviously, and it always gets me excited because you see them and their situation at like the end of all of the other books, and you see their dynamics and their personalities as side characters. So it's like you're hopeful for their book and you're excited for their book because you get all of these pieces and you really want to see like the full picture, but it also makes me try to lower my expectations because sometimes you get so hyped up, so excited about all the things you've seen about them that you get so excited for like their book and then it could be a disappointment. Nonetheless, I'm very excited about this one. I think their story and like the tropes in this one are very, very interesting. This is not only a second chance, but she actually breaks up like a wedding. She's supposed to get married, which you find out in all the other books, and it's actually on the summary as well. But since it's a second chance romance, you know I'm excited. That's one of my favorite tropes literally ever. Like seeing them in all the other books, you can see his feelings for her already, and I'm really, really excited for this, but I'm trying not to go into it with like super high expectations. I think this book series is such a good one for like palate cleanser reads, really fast paced, and while I'm reading them, I'm really enjoying them. I love being in the town, but then after the fact, I like kind of forget about them a little bit. They're not my favorite, but I'm really excited about this one. I'm sad it is the last one because I do like the dynamic in this. It's like interconnected, small town, cowboy romances, and the family dynamics and everything like that is really, really fun. So I'm gonna miss them, but I am excited about this one. The next one I have is Don't Be in Love. This is the same author as Picking Daisies on Sundays, which I read, I believe, last year or the year before. I kind of can't remember now, but I really enjoyed that one. She is a self-published author, and that makes me really excited to read this one. I believe it takes place in London, which is really exciting. I don't know the tropes of it, which I probably should look up the exact summary. And also, can we just talk about the cover? Both of her covers for both of her books are so cute. 21-year-old career-driven Adelaide decides to transfer to one of the most prestigious universities in the world, London's Townsend University, for her senior year. She meets Dorian Blackwood, the youngest of the prominent British family known for their impression on the entertainment industry. She's not only a student at Townsend University, but the person her new best friend and roommate is absolutely in love with, which is how Adelaide ultimately becomes twisted in a deal with Dorian to keep their secret. But just because Dorian agrees to keep their secret doesn't mean he'll make life easy for her. That sounds like a messy, messy plot, which I do unfortunately love a messy, messy plot, so I'm excited about this one. And then last but not least, the last romance on my radar for the spring as of right now, aside from the new releases coming out, is Past the Broken Bridges by B. Celeste. I got this book sent to me, and the summary of this pulled me in so hard. Like, I need to read this soon because it sounds so interesting. Listen to the summary because I think it sounds so much better when I read it than when I try to explain it to you. 13 years ago, Sawyer and her childhood friend Paxton shared secrets and snacks at their favorite wooden footbridge until Hurricane Katrina forced Sawyer's family to head north. But after a long battle with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma that kept her away, 21-year-old Sawyer is finally heading back to Louisiana for university. Now, with a new lease on life, she wants to be a normal college girl, check items off her list, even if Paxton is no longer there, and her mysterious, gorgeous neighbor Banks might just be able to help her with that new list. The closer they get to each other, the more their bruised hearts are in danger of falling or breaking. And when Sawyer learns Banks is Paxton Banks, and Banks realizes she's the same Sawyer from long ago, they'll find that while their footbridge may still be standing, it's up to them to cross the distance to each other. Like, they found their way back to each other. It's a second chance, but like the way it's happening and like this, not like secret, but like the surprise they didn't realize it was each other, which I'm like, how are we not noticing it's each other? I don't know, but we're gonna find out, and I'm really excited about this. I think the storyline sounds so interesting. That is the last one on my physical TBR, mental TBR that's already published and out that I would like to read this spring. Let's get into the last couple books I want to talk about. There's 4 new releases that are coming out in these next few weeks that I actually am going to be at the bookstore again at 9 a.m. to buy them. I'll be the first person at the bookstore. First one is none other than My Friends by Frederick Bachman. I'm gonna be camping out to get this book. Like, I cannot be more excited for a book if I like tried. Like, I need this book in my hands. Basically about this painting that's a very famous painting. It was painted like 20 something years ago, and it's a story of these people that were painting, and they were all friends back in the day. They went through a lot, and then the present day we have our main character who I think is trying to find out the story of the painting, and she's like going down all these rabbit holes to find out like the meaning behind it and like who the people are in the painting. I think in this we get to know each of the characters within the painting and also our main character, and just like his storytelling is one of the most amazing, beautiful, wonderful things I've ever had the privilege to read. So I cannot wait to see the way he tells this story, and I can't wait to have a new Frederick Bachman book in my hand. I know he has some books that I haven't read yet which are also on my radar, but not for the spring. They're just like in general on my TBR, but I'm so excited for this book. You have literally no idea. I mean, you do because I just told you, but I'm so excited. I actually am going to be smiling talking about the other 3 books on this list. The next one we have is Rewind It Back by Liz Humford, and I actually, like, you cannot wipe the smile off my face when I have this book in my hand right now. Like, I am ecstatic to be reading this book. I'm obsessed with the Windy City series. If you didn't know, Play Along, the most recent release, is one of my favorite romances literally ever. Isaiah Rhodes is like the standard. Like, he is incredible. This book we have been waiting for since the first one, which I say Windy City is one of my favorite series. I didn't like the first one. I like those characters as side characters as the series goes on, but I did not like their book. But nonetheless, I am so excited about this because we have been waiting for this character to find love for so long, and I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, it's a second chance romance. I'm so excited. It's also a sports romance, if you didn't know. The Windy City series, you have hockey and basketball, and then I think this goes back to hockey. There's also baseball, so you have all of those. And Liz Tomford's writing like is so good. She writes such incredible male main characters, female main characters, settings and scenes, and she doesn't really like harp on like the sports part of it. Like, it's just a fact that they're athletes. But the character we're getting in this one, I'm just so excited to finally see his story and see him find love. Really upset this is the last one in the actual Windy City series, but we're getting a spin-off of Monty. And when they introduced Monty in Caught Up, I could not be more excited for this as well. The next book I have is It's a Love Story by Annabelle Monaghan. I cannot wait for this book because her other releases that I read, all of the other books she's come out with, are so good. They're kind of like women's fiction, romance. There are a few of them telling of like a mom point of view, and I really, really love the way she depicts that and depicts just like women and finding love again. I can't really tell you the summary of this one because I've read it like so many times. Destiny and I on our podcast have also tried to read the summary a couple times, and it just like doesn't really click with us. I don't really know why, but I'm so excited about this book. I want to say there's a second chance somewhere in here, but I could be mistaken. I just know it's a perfect spring summer read. I'm really excited to read her stories again. They're so fast paced, they're so beautiful. That's it. That's all I have to say. This one is on my spring TBR, and I'm definitely going to be reading it when it comes out. The last and final book on my spring TBR is Can't Get Enough by Kennedy Ryan. This one actually comes out really, really soon. By the time this video is out, it could possibly be out. I'm not sure, maybe not, but it's coming out really soon. This is the third and final book in the Skyland series. If you didn't know, Before I Let Go, This Could Be Us are the first two books, and these are all following three best friends. I have actually had the privilege, and I'm so grateful that I'm able to see Kennedy Ryan twice, and I've listened to her talk about these books in this series twice within a Q&A, and the way that she describes it and talks about it is so beautiful, so eloquent, and I love the way that she speaks about these characters and what they're going through, and the way she described Can't Get Enough, I'm just like so excited for it. This is, I think, gonna be maybe my favorite. Every time I read a new one, it becomes my favorite. I love Before I Let Go. Then the second book I read, and I was like, no, this one is actually my favorite, I think, and then Can't Get Enough, I think, is actually going to be my favorite. We follow Hendrix, and she is the friend who just does not want kids, and she is a very independent, strong woman. You know, she has a very successful job, a very successful career, a lot of money and everything like that, and you know, she's not looking for love in any sorts, whereas her like friends are in very different circumstances. So I'm so excited to read about a woman who, you know, doesn't want to go down like the normal path that women feel like they have to go down, you know, having kids, having a family, being married, and like having the exact like pinpoints and timeline that a lot of women go down, which is like nothing wrong with that, but she's very strong and like she doesn't want kids, and that's totally fine. And I'm so excited to read her story and see her fall in love. So that is the final and last book on my spring TBR. Let me know if there's any books on your spring TBR that I have not talked about yet, because I will definitely add it to mine. Like I said, this will all roll into the summer, so we'll be reading some of these in the summer as well. You'll be seeing a lot of these in probably reading vlogs at some point. I'm so excited to get to every single one of these. Let me know if you've added any of them to your TBR after watching this, or if you've read any of these books. Please let me know if you liked them. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if you did, and I will see y'all hopefully in the next video. Bye!